She was hired to manage calendars, emails, meetings, silence. No one warned her that silence would become the most dangerous part of the job. When Alara joined the firm, she understood the rules immediately. Assistants were invisible, efficient, forgettable, and that suited her just fine. Her desk sat just outside the glass office that belonged to Marcus Vale, chief operating officer, married, respected, and spoken about in hushed tones like a man who never made mistakes. He noticed everything, especially her. It started the way these things always do: late nights, urgent requests, doors that closed more often than they should. "You're still here," he said one evening, loosening his tie as the office emptied. "So are you," Alara replied. They smiled. That was the first lie. She learned his habits quickly: how he took his coffee, how his voice dropped when he was tired, how he paused before speaking when something mattered. She also learned what no one else did: that his wife, pregnant and glowing, worked 2 floors below in legal compliance, that his marriage was orderly, respectful, and distant. That loneliness wears expensive suits. The first time he touched her, it wasn't dramatic, just a hand at her waist as she passed behind him. A pause that lasted a second too long. She should have stepped away. She didn't. The office became theirs after hours. Not the open floor. Too exposed. The executive washroom. The private meeting room with the broken camera. His office, once the blinds were drawn. They never spoke about it. They didn't have to. Desire thrives in what remains unsaid. Their intimacy was quiet, controlled, urgent. Hands pressed against glass, breath stolen between meetings. Her skirt smoothed down before walking back out into the world. Never explicit, never loud, always risky. At his house, it was different. Marcus lived in a modern home filled with neutral colors and photographs that felt staged. Vacations smiling for a future that no longer existed. His wife's things were everywhere: prenatal books, soft blankets, a crib half-assembled. Alara noticed everything. She always did. They were careful there. No bedroom, no lingering, only the guest room, the kitchen counter, the shower, places that felt temporary. He never said he loved her. She never asked. But secrets demand payment. And Alara was paying more than she realized. She rearranged meetings to protect him, deleted emails that could raise questions, intercepted calls from his wife when his voice couldn't hide the truth. She knew too much. And that knowledge changed the balance. Tea happened on a night that felt ordinary, a disagreement, a drink too many, words sharpened by exhaustion. She told him she was tired of hiding. He told her this was how it had to be. When he touched her, she froze. Not because she didn't want him, because she suddenly understood what she was to him. Later, she would replay that moment endlessly. The way she didn't push him away, the way she didn't pull him closer, the way consent blurred into silence. The next morning, she didn't come to work. By afternoon, HR was alerted. By evening, Marcus was called into a room with no windows. The accusation landed like a gunshot. Grape. The word changed everything. It erased context. It erased history. It erased her own confusion. Investigations began. Emails resurfaced. Deleted messages recovered. Security footage reviewed frame by frame. Everyone knew, including his wife. Alara was moved to paid leave, then unpaid, then silence. Marcus was suspended, then fired, then charged. The firm issued a statement about values and safety. No one mentioned desire. In private, Alara questioned herself. Had she meant to destroy him? Or had she simply reached the end of what she could carry? Truth, she learned, doesn't survive cleanly in places built on power. The case collapsed months later. Insufficient evidence, mutual history, too many unanswered questions, no verdict, no closure, just wreckage. Marcus lost everything: his job, his marriage, access to his unborn child. Alara lost something quieter: her certainty. They never spoke again. But sometimes, late at night, she remembered the way the office felt after hours, how silence could feel like permission, how knowing too much can become a kind of trap. Some stories don't end with guilt or innocence. They end with understanding. That power distorts desire. That silence can be mistaken for consent. And that the assistant who knows too much is never truly invisible again. By the time the rumors started, Mara had already learned how to disappear in plain sight. She mastered the art of stillness, quiet steps through glass corridors, neutral dresses that said professional not noticed, eyes lowered just enough to seem obedient. Inside, though, her thoughts were loud, chaotic, hungry. After the accusation, the company didn't explode the way she imagined it would. It hushed. HR emails came wrapped in polite language: internal review, administrative leave, no conclusions drawn. His office light went dark, but his name stayed on the org chart. His wife, round with pregnancy and still attending meetings, was moved to a different floor for her comfort. Mara watched all of this from her desk, still answering emails, still scheduling meetings for executives who pretended not to look at her too long. She realized something chilling then. The company didn't want the truth. They wanted quiet. And quiet was something Mara had been trained to provide. At night, the memories returned uninvited. The way his voice used to soften when the office door clicked shut. The heavy pause before his hand reached for her waist. How desire blurred into obligation so gradually she hadn't noticed when no stopped meaning not now. She told herself she had loved him once, or at least loved what he represented: access, protection, a future that felt closer when his hands were on her. But love didn't feel like this. Love didn't leave you staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering which version of the story would survive. He reached out first, a message from a private number. You didn't have to do this. You know what we were. Her chest tightened, not with longing, but with fury. What we were had always been on his terms. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. The next day, security walked her to a smaller office near records. Same pay. Fewer eyes. A soft exile disguised as protection. That's when she met Lena. Lena was new, early 20s, bright smile, fresh degree, the kind of optimism Mara used to carry like a badge. They worked late one night, fluorescent lights humming overhead, the building emptied of executives and secrets that pretended to sleep. You're her, right? Lena asked carefully. Mara didn't answer at first. You can say it, she finally replied. Everyone else does behind my back. Lena hesitated. Then, he asked me to stay late last week. The room went still. He said I reminded him of someone, Lena continued, eyes shining with something between fear and flattery. Said he could mentor me. Mara felt something break, not loudly but cleanly. She saw herself again, younger, eager, believing proximity to power was the same as safety. Did he touch you? Mara asked quietly. No, Lena said. But he stood too close, and when I moved, he laughed like I'd misread everything. That laugh. Mara stood, walked to the window, and pressed her palm against the cold glass. He'll never cross a line, Mara said. He'll make you step over it yourself. Lena swallowed. What did you do? Mara turned back, meeting her eyes. I learned the difference between being chosen and being used. The investigation dragged on. His lawyer framed Mara as ambitious, emotional, confused, consensual, they kept saying, a complicated relationship. She was asked to recount details she had tried to forget, where she stood, what she wore, whether she ever smiled afterward. Each question stripped something from her, and still, no verdict. Then the company made its decision. They settled quietly. No admission of guilt. A severance package for Mara. A mutual parting of ways for him. Effective after his wife delivered. Mara signed the papers with a steady hand, but something inside her was already planning. On her last day, she walked through the building one final time. The offices, the conference room where it began, the elevator where his hand once lingered just a second too long. She stopped by records. Lena hugged her tightly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Mara leaned in and said something back, soft, deliberate. "Be careful who you let rewrite your instincts." That night, Mara uploaded a file, not to the company, not to the courts, to a private archive she'd been building for months. Emails, calendar invites, voice notes, patterns, not just his, but others. Men whose power thrived in silence. Systems that rewarded compliance and punished disruption. She didn't attach her name, she attached proof. Weeks later, a story broke, not about her, not about him, about corporate culture, about assistants, about the quiet cost of ambition. Mara watched it unfold from her small apartment, laptop glowing in the dark. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lena. They asked me to testify. I said yes. Mara closed her eyes. For the first time in months, the weight lifted, just slightly. She wasn't vindicated, she wasn't healed, but she was no longer alone. And somewhere in the shadows of glass towers and late nights, other women were listening. Learning, waiting, because the most dangerous thing in corporate life isn't desire, it's silence.